Okay, now we're going to talk about the detailer personality. The detailer is the bean counter of the world. They are people that love details. You can see that my names immediately by thinking of the detailer. You'll remember immediately that that person is the analytical person. They're the person who loves facts and figures. Let's talk about how to sell to a detailer. Negotiating style. Negotiating style with detailers is lose-lose. They will actually pass your stuff up, even if they could get it for free, if the facts and figures, if everything isn't right and perfect in the particular relationship with you and the product and the service and the company. Detailers usually are very difficult to negotiate with, and they usually have one sticking price, and we'll talk about that sticking place, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But they literally, if they will, the reason that they will lose is because they will actually outthink themselves. They'll think they're smarter than you, and even if they like really needed or wanted your product or service, they will literally pass it up. I remember a friend of mine who was a detailer who was a great shopper and a great buyer, and she called a car dealer. She told me this story. She was calling car dealerships looking for a price on a particular minivan for her family, and she called up and she said, "I want." She got the salesman on the line, and she said, I want this kind of a car. I want this. Here's the features. Here's the model number. Here's the the package that I want, and I want a price." And the salesperson said, it was his first mistake. He said, "Lady, hey, lady, you can't buy a car over the phone. You need to come in here and talk with me." And my friend who is a detailer, she said, "I bought my last two cars over the internet and on the phone, and I'm going to buy this one. And you can either sell me this $30,000 car or not. It's up to you. Now, did you want to give me a price on this car right now on the phone, or did you want me to hang up?" Remember, detailers can be cold and impersonal, and she now think about what she just did. Maybe this guy would have had the perfect car, the perfect color. Maybe it would have had the best package in the world. Perhaps maybe it was even a great price, but she was willing to lose because he would not go along with her buying style, which is that, remember, there's another word that you can use for negotiating style, is their buying style or their purchasing style. So let's talk about detailers in more detail. They'll pass your stuff up for free, even if they know they need it. In my example, my friend was willing to perhaps get to lose a great deal on a car simply because she wasn't getting the details. She wasn't getting the facts and figures. She was cold and impersonal, and she had a way she was going to buy. And if someone didn't want to sell her that way as she was doing her research, then they would be X'd off the list and killed, and she would never deal with them. That's how detailers tend to work. Detailers often get stuck on one issue. Guess what the issue is? It's price. They're very price conscious, and they are great negotiators, and they are always looking to drive to the lowest price and to try to get as much value as they can for that price. Now, many times detailers will cut their nose off to spite their face, as lose-lose would indicate. They'll outthink themselves. They'll overthink themselves. They will convince themselves that the lower price item or service is the same as the higher priced, and they will run enough details, facts and figures, and Excel spreadsheets. I remember one of our customers in the water treatment business who actually sent us a spreadsheet showing us the 4 water treatment, the softeners that he was looking at for his home. And he had all the brand names, and he had all of the details of what he thought were the features and the benefits. And he actually literally sat there and ran a comparison, had 4 companies come out to his house, give them all their brochures and literature. And he and I asked him, I said, what do you do for a living? He said, I'm an engineer. Well, an engineer is a perfect detailer personality, someone who needs everything to be right and perfect. And he had his spreadsheets. And quite frankly, if I remember correctly, I think he outthought himself, bought a product that I would have considered to be inferior. And I think he actually, in the long run, he lost. But of course, he didn't deal with me, so he didn't get the right vendor, which was me. But detailers tend to get stuck on price. You have to be ready to understand that, and you have to understand that you may have to make some concessions, or you may need to go a little bit high on your price initially because they're going to want concessions. When you're dealing with detailers, your negotiating tactics should be that you want to be direct. You don't want to fool around a lot with detailers. You'll know, for example, if you have a detailer, if you tell a story, especially if it's a humorous story, you tell some kind of a joke, or you drop a one-liner and you laugh, and the detailer, say you're on the phone or in person, doesn't laugh or just gives you kind of a half smile. Especially if you know that other people would like that joke, or it's worked for you, or whenever you say that, people always chuckle. You'll notice, again, your detailer will tend to be a little cold and impersonal. Again, think about that engineering attitude. Think about the accountant. We don't, like before, if you're going to have a party, you don't sit down and call 20 accountants and say, hey, we'd like you to come to our party. If you want to have a successful party, you invite a lot of expressives, people that can talk and have fun and will say hi to people. Invite 30 bean counters together. You're going to have a pretty boring deal. Again, not good or bad. If you're a detailer, you're very even keeled. You're very direct. You get things done. Everything is right and perfect. There is no good or bad. It just is who you are. So if you're a detailer, you're not going to be the person who's going to go to the party and be, necessarily with the lampshade on your head and starting the game of charades. So you have to remember that when you're dealing with detailers. So you want to be direct. You do want to, they don't drive to the bottom line as quickly as a dominator, but they do want the details, and they do want you to be direct. With detailers, as you might imagine, you want to offer proof and more proof. These people will want to see your spec sheets. I remember having a gal on the phone that I was trying to book an appointment with, and I was having trouble booking an appointment with her. And I said to her on the phone, I realized, getting the feeling she was a detailer, the way she was talking and some of the stuff she was saying. And she asked me, she said, do you have, brochures, or do you have spec sheets, or do you have information that you can send me? And I said to her, actually, ma'am, I've got reams of information. I mean, I've got spec sheets and color charts and reports. I mean, I've got enough information, I said, to go from the ceiling to the floor with stuff that you can look at about water and our water treatment products. And she almost, I could hear on the phone, she almost like squealed with excitement. She was like, oh, that's great. Yeah. Do you have any information? Oh, I've got tons of information. I got brochures. I got spec sheets. I mean, the pile starts at the bottom of the floor and goes to the top of the ceiling. She went, oh, that's fantastic. How do I get that? And I said, well, the way that you get it is you invite me in, and I'll bring all that information with me. It'll be when we shake hands, I'll hand that information to you. She couldn't book the appointment fast enough because I was offering her details and information. Detailers love the details. Don't be afraid to get them to them, to offer, to bring them when you meet with them. They want proof and more proof. So any spec sheets that you have, any of that kind of information is great. Unfortunately, with detailers, the emotional sell doesn't work well. Remember what you know about detailers. They're the bean counters. They're analytical. They don't get as emotional as your expressive will or your dominator will. They generally won't buy as quickly. Again, detailers need to have a couple of sometimes follow-up appointments. They'll call you back asking questions. They'll want more spec sheets. They'll want more websites. They'll want more links. They'll read reviews. They're pains in the tuchus, quite frankly. But again, if you're not a detailer, if you're a dominator, if you're an expressive, if you're a relator, you've got to get in that mode with the detailer of giving them the information. And unfortunately, the emotional sell doesn't work that well. Now, we know that people buy emotionally and they justify their decision with logic, but be careful not to be going too emotional all the time with your sell. If you do talk about something emotional, in that your product can either solve or fix or a problem, then you also want to offer the proof. Testimonials are somewhat good, but the detailers will tend to be, oh yeah, well, you can find anybody who says something good about it. I'm going to go find the people that say something bad about it, and certainly in this day and age, they'll be able to find that. You absolutely want to be organized and logical when you are setting appointments with detailers. You absolutely want to be you want to be on point with detailers. So, for example, if you have an appointment with a detailer, you're going into a meeting, you want to make sure that you have all of your stuff with you. You know, calculators, PowerPoints, brochures, samples, product lists, all of the support stuff. If you're doing an in-person presentation, you want to make sure that everything is in your briefcase or your computer bag. This is setting up a presentation in front of a detailer. You do not want to be running back out to the car saying you forgot something. You don't want to be at their kitchen table or at their boardroom saying, "Oh, I don't have this stuff." It drives detailers crazy if you're not organized. Remember what detailers want. They want things to be right and perfect. So if you show up with, mustard stains, on your tie, you're disheveled, you have a detailer. Don't be late. Be 5 minutes early. Be 10 minutes early. 5 minutes late for a detailer, you could blow the whole deal. 5 minutes late, I'm not buying from them. I can't trust them. Why would I get into a business with them or remodel my home with them, or buy an alarm system from them, or even buy a skincare product from them? Why would I do that? They were 5 minutes late. They were 3 minutes late. They'll cut your head off for 1 minute late. They'll literally say to you, "You're 1 minute late." So when you realize that you have a detailer, I want you to really be cognizant of the fact that you've got to have your act together. You got to show up on time. You have to be organized. You have to do an organized presentation. The good news about a detailer is that they will, if you're doing a slide presentation, they will look at your 15 slides. They're not like the Dominator, and they will say, go immediately to the bottom line. Because remember, detailers want facts and figures. They want information that will help them make a decision. So they don't drive to the bottom line. If you say you've got a presentation and it has a lot of information, they will take it. Now, of course, again, the problem there is they'll say, okay, now I have to take all your information and I have to analyze it. I have to run my spreadsheets. I have to determine what is the best thing for me to do here. So with detailers, you want to have all of your facts and figures straight. You want to present very straight-laced. Remember, cold and impersonal. A lot of times detailers will not share personal things about their life. And one of the tips that you should use with all people is that you should look as you're discussing things with them, and especially if you're trying to build a relationship with them, when you mention certain subjects or bring up certain things, I want you, if you've been in my, if you've listened and watched the Advanced Listening Intensive, I tell you to watch their faces very closely or listen very closely on the phone for responses or no responses. And for example, let's say with a detailer, let's say that you saw a picture of their children in their office or in their home, And let's say you said, "Oh, I have a son, looks to be about the same age as your son. Is that a picture of your son?" Now, you watch their face and you watch and listen to their response. If they light up, if the face lights up, and especially above the brow area, they kind of open the brow, and they light up when you bring up the subject of the son, or the daughter, or you fish, or you golf, or this is a beautiful home, or how long have you been in business? Anything that you talk about, the meter's always running. You always have to be looking at their face, and when you're looking at their face, see how they react to your question. You may say, "Is that your son? How old is your son? What's your son's name?" If they just say, "Oh, that's Johnny. He's 9." And then they go, "So tell me," and they don't light up. They don't give you any more information. What you found is that that's not a subject that person wants to necessarily discuss with you. Now, this doesn't mean that they don't love their son. It doesn't mean that they don't love their family. What it means is that is not something that they're going to, open the kimono, and show you about themselves or talk to you about themselves. Now, you might at the same time, you might say, "Geez, I saw that plaque in your office, and I see that you're a member of the Rotary," and again, watch the face. The face may light up, and someone says as the face brightens, "Yes, I've been with the Rotary for 15 years. One of the greatest things I ever did was get involved in Rotary. I provide great service," and they start talking a little bit about it. They brighten up. You can see it's a subject that they will discuss with you. Then you've found something that you could continue on with. Here's what I'm driving at, and I'll tell you a story. When I was in the pump and water treatment business, I had basically what is known as a milk route. And the milk route, what a milk route is it's a series of actual stops that you make each day of the week, and you see certain clients, certain customers. And I used to call on plumbers and well drillers and pump installers. And I had a number of kind of set appointments where, like every Wednesday or every other Wednesday, I would stop by the Country Diner, and I knew that I could, find one of my customers that always stopped there, have a coffee and a breakfast sandwich with him, and I could build a relationship with him and then ask him if he needed to buy any pumps or water treatment equipment or pipe or electrical stuff. We were a wholesale supplier, and my job was to be in the field, asking for the business, building the relationships, taking care of customer service problems. I was the eyes and ears of the company out on the road, in the field, if you will. I always picture myself in the tall grass whenever I say I'm out in the field. And I had this particular customer, and he was my Wednesday morning guy, and his name was Ed Wea. And Ed was an incredibly, he was an expressive, and he was a real talker. And whenever I would find him at 7:00 or 8:00 at this particular diner on Wednesday morning, he'd be looking forward to me being there. He'd always order the same sandwich. He'd always order the same, coffee or drink. He'd always have the New York Post or the Daily News or something that he was looking through there, and typical diner papers, and we would converse about certain subjects. Now, I'm going to tell you, Ed Wea could talk about anything. He could talk a dog off a meat wagon. He had opinions. He could talk politics. He would talk sports. He would talk local people. This dude could talk about stuff. But the really interesting thing about Ed is whenever I talked about his family, Ed would almost instantly clam up. Now, I know that Ed loved his family, and I know that Ed, he had a son that was actually kind of I think the son might have been a surprise. It was his young son, young Eddie. He had some older daughters, and he had this young boy. And I know that he delighted in the boy, and I know his daughters were older, and literally trying to get information about his family was like pulling teeth. Now, Ed was an expressive, But whenever I brought up his family, his kids, he very rarely. I could tell you now, many years later, I don't know anything about his wife, and he never talked about her. And whenever I would talk about, and especially try to talk about Eddie, because I had a son and I thought that was a way to bond with him, he just never bid on that. Now, he wasn't a detailer, but it was a subject that, you see, some people keep some subjects private in the business relationship. For whatever reason, Ed would not discuss family. And when I would ask him about his family, he would give short one-sentence answers, and he wouldn't follow up. He wouldn't expound. Now, if I asked him what he thought of the current presidential administration, Ed would go into a 15-minute talk about what he thought about, and he'd point to things in the paper. And he was a very, very verbal person. He'd talk about business. He'd talk about money. He'd talk about everything. But he would not talk about his family. That was personal and private to him for some reason. I don't know. I always thought it was weird as an expressive that he didn't reveal that. And when I say weird, that was just my personal feeling, because I'm usually very open about talking about my family. Again, neither good nor bad. The point I want you to get here is that, especially with detailers, if you bring up a subject, you want to watch and see how they react to it. You'll find by the look on their face, whether their brow lightens up, whether they smile, whether they just get an open expression as you bring up the subject, or they narrow the eyes a little bit, the brow kind of squints down, and they don't really go into detail or discuss the subject. I can guarantee you that that's just a subject that is not going to be a good subject for you to bring up and talk about. I remember a long time ago in my sales career, and I had been taught from the old-fashioned sales guys that said, when you get into a home or you get into an office, you immediately find something that you can look at and that you can make a connection with. And I remember being in an office, and I saw a picture of a attractive lady in the behind the desk of this guy, and I said, "Oh, is that your wife? She's a beautiful gal." And he says, "Yeah, I just got served with divorce papers yesterday. I'm not really happy with that." And he actually he reaches back and he turns the picture to the wall. And really set a bad tone for the meeting. So I guess I certainly didn't bring up the wife again, or the divorce. That kind of I had to kind of get the sales call back up from there. So the minute that you see that someone's not responding to your questions about family or about money, as I'm sure questions or taking stands on things about politics, religion, any controversial subjects, abortion, things of that nature, I try to keep that out of your sales calls. When you take stands against things, you may find that people. I remember, literally, I was probably 7 or 8 or 9 years old, and was out in front of Jimmy's Market in Danbury, Connecticut, and I was handing out bumper stickers and I was actually selling candy for our school. I was selling the world's finest chocolate, and my one of my classmates, his father had been the mayor of Danbury and was running for Danbury, and I had a vote for Gino Arconti button on my shirt. And I remember one of my potential customers, I said, "Would you like to buy some chocolate to support our school, sir?" And he actually bought the chocolate. And then he said to me, "You might want to get rid of that that button, Gino Arconti, Democrat for mayor." And I said, "Why?" It's I want Mr. Arconti to win again. He said, "Yeah, but some people don't want Mr. Arconti to win, and that might hurt your sales of chocolate." So at 8 years old, I'm learning a lesson about taking a stand and how it might actually hurt me in a sales call. So be careful with discussions about controversial subjects. I would try to stay away from them. If your prospect brings you into those areas and the brow is nice and open and they want to talk about stuff, then certainly discuss those things. But remember that with detailers, that you have to be very direct, you have to be very logical, you have to be organized, and you have to give them proof, and more proof. And you probably will have to do a repeated version of giving them more information and more information. You can sell to detailers. I don't want you to have a negative story about detailers. Oh no, I've got a detailer, I can't sell them. You can. You've just got to hang in there with them, and you've got to work with them in the right way. In addition, you want to never criticize a detailer. As I told you the story of my friend who who called the car dealer and said, I want to buy, give me a price on this car. And he said, hey, lady, you can't buy a car over the phone. I just can't believe that guy said that to her. But you do not want to criticize. You don't want to criticize the decision-making process of a detailer, especially if you're an expressive or a dominator. As a salesperson, you may find that it's driving you crazy that they will not make a decision, that they need more proof. And you've got to hang in there. You got to put your ego aside, and you have to keep offering that proof. And you do not want to say, geez, you're being awfully nudgy about this, or what, you need another spreadsheet, or you need more information. You haven't made a decision yet. You don't want to be negative in any way as it relates to that. Let's go now to worksheet number 3.